What's up guys, this is a quick video on how to change your alternator on a Subaru Impreza. So right guys, this will be for all Subarus. The alternator usually is in the same place, it's here at the top. Some of the layout will be slightly different on the older models and the other Subarus, but the alternator is always there. The only difference is the bracket might be in two parts instead of one whole part, and you might have to take 3 nuts off. 1, 2 and 3 on the other versions. This one's only got 2 on it, but it will be the exact same. So right guys, we're going to start off by undoing the battery first. So next we're going to take this bracket off here, and that's a 10mm nut on that side and a 10mm bolt on that side. Next we're going to take the alternator power supply off from there, and we're going to take the sensor off, which is just under there, the green one. So I'm going to take the sensor off with these long nose pliers. So next we're going to disconnect the alternator, that's a 12mm. So take the nut and washer off, and then once you disconnected it, put it back onto the alternator. So that's the first bolt we're loosening. After that we will loosen the locking bolt, which is right there. Once you've loosened that, don't take it off completely. And then we're going to loosen the adjustment bolt. So this mechanism here is very important. All you have to remember is this is a locking nut. This is an adjusting bolt what adjusts the alternator belt and the power steering belt to go up and down, which tightens it and loosens it. So you're going to loosen it from here or tighten it from here and then lock it off. Don't try to loosen it and tighten it without loosening this off, because it will snap the bolt. So right guys, that's what we're going to do now. We're going to loosen that and free the alternator up, so then we can loosen the tension bolt off to take the belt off. So next we're going to loosen the big bolt, which is right there, and it goes all the way across to a bracket at the back. Next we're going to loosen the locking bolt, which is down here. So right, you can see that's loosened it now. Next we're going to loosen the tension bolt to loosen the belt up so we can take the belt off. So loosen the tension bolt, but don't completely take it out. Next thing we're going to do is take the belt off. So right guys, this is the belt off now. I've had mine recently changed, but just check your belt. Make sure it's not dry or cracked in any way. Make sure your tracks are alright, they're not broken or anything like that. If you need to change yours, this is the best time to change it. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the locking nut off now. So that's the locking bolt off with the washer. Next we're going to take the big bolt out of there. Just be careful as you loosen it, there's a bracket at the back which has got the nut welded on it. So we're going to get that off now. So right guys, that's the bracket out, that's how it's come off. Like I said, it's got the nut welded on the back of it. The reason why they've done that is to make it easy when you're tightening the bolt up, so it doesn't constantly spin round and you can't nip it up. So this just locks into place and it stops it spinning so you can tighten it up. So right, we're going to take the big bolt out next. So remember how that come out, that was that way up. Next, simply we're just going to lift the alternator up and wiggle it about a bit and just get it out. So right, there you go guys, that's how you take your alternator off. So now if you need to get it reconditioned, you can get it reconditioned or replace it with a new one. So right, we're going to put it back in and put the belt back on. So right, when we're putting it back in, just make sure, if you can, just tap that back a bit, just lightly, so this goes on the other side, because if it protrudes out from here, it just makes it a bit more difficult to slot back in. So right, when we're going to put it back in, just grab it from the front and just grab it from the side and just feed it in. So right, I'm going to do that now. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the long bolt back in. So remember how it went in this way. Next we're going to put the bracket back on. So make sure you put it on the right way. It was this way up, with the largest bit at the top, not the shortest bit. So that's how it's going to go on the back. So I'm going to do that now. So right, just tighten that up, but don't completely tighten it up. Leave the alternator so it's free. So next we're going to put the locking nut back in, which goes down there. So when you're putting the locking bolt back in, make sure you put it through the tension mechanism and then straight into the alternator after that. Like I said, just nip that up, but don't completely tighten it up. Make sure the alternator can move up and down, because we still have to adjust the alternator belt. So like I said, just to show you that it's loose. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the alternator belt on now. So we're going to put it through the power steering pump first, and then the crankshaft pulley, and then finally we'll put it back onto the alternator. So right, that's the alternator belt back on. Just make sure it's on all the tracks and it's properly on. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to tighten the tension bolt and tighten the belt up. So right, once you're happy with the tension on your belt, then you need to lock it off with the locking nut underneath, and then finally we'll tighten the long bolt. The tension on the belt, just make sure, so the tension on the belt, just make sure it's not too tight and it's not too loose. If it's too loose, what it will do, it'll slip on the alternator, which will not charge your battery, and it can slip on your power steering pump, and if it does that, your power steering won't work proper. So just make sure that you tighten it, but not too tight and not too loose. What I tend to do is I tend to grab the belt at the longest point. From here to here, that's the shortest point. From there to the camshaft, that's the longest point. So what I'll do is I'll try to push it from the middle there and check the tension there. And what I do with the belt is I twist it side to side, and I make sure that the belt can twist to about more or less 90 degrees. Not completely 90, but about just less than 90 on both sides. And then that's it, I'm happy with it there. If it goes too far, it means it's loose, it needs tightening up. If it doesn't go far enough, that means it's too tight and needs loosening a bit. But once you've tightened it up, you need to start it up and check it, and let it run for a few minutes, and then turn it off and check the tension again on your belt. So right, I'm going to check mine now and make sure I'm happy with mine, and then I'm going to tighten the locking nut which is underneath the tension bolt. I'm going to make sure it's not too tight and it's not too loose. If it's too loose, it'll start slipping and it won't charge your battery up. If it's too tight, it can damage the bearings in the alternator, in the power steering pulley, or the drive bearings. So basically you've got a risk of bearings going in three places. So just make sure you don't leave it too loose and too tight. So right, I'm going to tighten the tension bolt, the locking nut up underneath now. Next we're going to tighten the long bolt up. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to connect the alternator power supply back on, and the sensor, we're going to push that back in. So right, we're going to tighten that up, but don't over tighten it. So right, that's the sensor back in. What we're going to do now is we're going to connect the battery back up, and then we're going to check the tension after a minute. So right, I'm going to check the tension of the belt again and make sure I'm happy with it. So right guys, I'm quite happy with that. Now I'm going to connect the bracket back up and the job's finished. So right guys, that's how you take your alternator out and put it back in, and that's how I check my tension on my belt. So right guys, I hope this helps somebody out who's trying to take the alternator out and needs a bit of help. And thanks for watching guys. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Bye.